Hello everyone and welcome to my little corner of the internet. My name's Michael and I'm bitten by a radioactive book. Today is Monday and normally you're used to getting a review on Monday, but I decided to change a few things up, and one of those new decisions is that I want to read more books this year overall, and so I hope that I can at least read 2 to 3 books every week, maybe even more by entering or by adding a few more shorter books this year. For example, I'm trying to read the Discworld series with a book a month, and I'm partaking in the Neverlanders group where we read middle grade books that are normally quite short. So hopefully I'll be able to give you like 3 or 4 books, maybe even every week. So I thought that would be a nice way to wrap up each week and to avoid like a huge 20+ book wrap up at the end of the month. Of course, this wrap up is a little longer because I'm wrapping up like the first 11 days of January, so it's more like a 1.5 week wrap up, and I've managed to read like 6 novels and a short story in that time. The first novel I finished was The Shotgun Arcana by R.S. Belcher. It's the second installment in his Golgotha series. It's a Weird West series, so that means we have a Wild West scenario that is filled with the supernatural or with supernatural elements and with some steampunk elements as well. I already enjoyed the first book in the series, The Six Gun Tarot, which I awarded 5 stars for, and I also awarded 5 stars to the sequel. What I really like about this series is that we have a multi-POV narrative, and as we progress through each of the plot lines, we see that every character has some kind of secret, which is like gradually revealed over time. And I'm a huge fan of those kind of secrets and revelations, and R.S. Belcher has a really good way of pacing and giving us the right amount of information on the right time. And the second thing I really enjoy is that he does a huge amount of world building. We are always in this relatively small western city of Golgotha, but he manages to incorporate a lot of different mythologies, religions, and mixes them up to a very, very unique feel for the whole setting. And for me personally, that kind of setting, the sense of wonder he's able to invoke, the mix-up and combination of the different mythologies is really, really well done. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of the whole setting, of the characters, and therefore it was clearly a 5-star read for me. Next up, I finished The Last Colony by John Scalzi. It's the third book in his Old Man's War series. I really enjoyed this one. Again, I awarded 5 stars, so you can see my month really started off well. And what I liked about this one was that we get actually the main character of the first book back, John Perry. I don't go into too many specifics because I don't want to spoil like the first or the second book, so I'm not talking about what the book is actually about. But in comparison to the second book that had a little bit of a slow start and was a bit confusing and dense within the first 50 pages, The Last Colony takes off right from the start and never lets go. And John Scalzi has a very unique kind of humor. I think he's very talented with that kind of sarcastic military humor. He also has a very accessible way of writing, and as I said in this one, that kind of writing is there from the start, and therefore I enjoyed the book a lot and awarded it 5 stars. I've read this together with Lindsay from Lindsay Ray, and we both agreed upon this book and were really enjoying it. I think she awarded it 5 stars as well. The only minor complaint I really had were that for the plot to actually work, there were like 2 decisions by different characters that should have known better, in my opinion, and they didn't make the decisions that I would normally expect from a person in their position, and so the plot could actually work. If that is something that bugs you, then you might detract more from that, but I found the overall novel to such a large enjoyment that it didn't bother me that much. As I said, I've read a short story as well, and that was Mitosis by Brandon Sanderson. And of course, this was my personal preparation for one of the big releases of January, Firefight by Brandon Sanderson, the second installment in his Reckoner series. For me, this YA series is a bit on the weaker side of Sanderson's work. It is very enjoyable and light to read, but it lacks, of course, the complexity and the awe-inspiring settings and characters that his epic fantasy series have in store for the reader. Nonetheless, this second book, Firefight, and the story, short story Mitosis, were an improvement on Steelheart, in my opinion. I really enjoyed how the series actually develops, and I'm really looking forward to see what the third book does, but I have like some complaints about the series. My first problem is, or my huge problem with the series is actually the main protagonist himself, David, because David is, I think, very immature. Of course, his story, the story of a teenager seeking revenge who slowly develops maybe into a leader character, in the end needs that kind of immaturity to give a bit of character development. But for my opinion, David is a character I can't really identify with, and I don't find him that likable that I really want to root for him. So he's more of a character I'm a bit about, and for a single first-person POV, that is always like a bad thing. And another complaint I actually have is, and you have to know about me that I'm German, and in Germany weapons are not like an everyday kind of occurrence as they are in the US. For example, I'm 38 years old and I've never seen an actual real weapon in my whole life, and I don't know anyone personally here that owns a weapon. So a book that is that idolizes weapons in the way that Steelheart and Firefight do this, and have characters bond over their fondness for weapons and even flirt with weapon terminology, feels like off for me, and that is very off-putting, and it rubs me the wrong way. I've read this book with a few other booktubers, and the American booktubers all said that they could see that, but they wouldn't have that kind of problem, and it didn't feel so off to them as it was for me. But for me, that really diminishes my enjoyment of the series. So overall, for that kind of problem and for the main character, I deducted 1.5 stars from like the full 5-star rating, and it's more like a weak 3.5 for me. I've rated the first book 3 stars, so overall it's like a little improvement over the first book, because the weapons thing is not that dominant as it was in the first book, but it's still there, and I don't think that it sends out the right message to teenagers, of course, because the series is marketed as YA, and I don't think that you should send out the message to teenagers, weapons are cool. Next off, I finished Sibola Burn, which is the 4th installment in James S. A. Corey's Expanse series. Again, it's kind of difficult to talk about the actual plot of the book, because for that you would need to have information about the series that you don't have, or that would spoil like the first 3 books for you. So I don't go into any specifics of the actual plot. Structure-wise, the series always does one thing. You have like the perspective of Captain James Holden, the main character of the series, and the captain of the starship Rocinante. And he and his crew are always one focus of the book. And each installment so far then had like additional side characters who were only present for this one story. And this is one of my major complaints with this book, that I have the feeling that we had like very strong side characters in the first 2 books of the series, but already with the last installment and again with this one, the characters don't connect with me on many levels. And one of my main complaints there is that if you really look into the structure, as I said, you will see that we have Captain James Holden, and then he has a crew of like 3 people. Alex, the pilot, Amos, the engineer and weapons guy, and Naomi, who's also like an engineer and tech genius. And with this novel, we get like 3 side characters, and in the end, magically, each of the new POVs ends up with one of the crew members. So the purpose of each of the new POVs is only to stay with one of the crew members. Of course, each one tells a story of his or her own, but actually the function was more of a, get eyes on what is Naomi doing, or get eyes on what is Alex doing. And I thought it would be more beneficial to the series if we actually would get their POVs, because they are likable characters, and it wouldn't have to be that messy in my opinion. And therefore we're also getting like only a really little development for like the overall story plot of the series, so that feels more like a standalone book. And with my problems with the characters, with the purpose of the characters, and with the very, very little progress of the overall plot, for me the book was actually not more than okay. And therefore I only rated it 2 stars. I have hopes, because the epilogue kind of suggests that we may see characters from the former books again, the stronger characters. So I hope the next book will be an improvement of this. And and my rating is of course influenced by me knowing the series. If that would have been a standalone story, I might have rated it a bit higher, because the plot is not really bad. But from a book of the Expanse series, I expected way more in terms of the overall progress of the storyline, and therefore for me, I'm really sorry because I really liked the series, but it was just like a 2-star read for me. As I've said in the intro, I'm also part of the Neverlanders group. That is a group dedicated to reading middle grade books, and the first series we are going to tackle is the series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket, and we are trying to read a book each week because they are very short. And so I started off with The Bad Beginning, the first installment. So the series of Unfortunate Events is about 3 siblings who lose their parents and now have to live with their uncle. And of course, as the title of the series suggests, everything what can go wrong in their lives will go wrong. So so you don't really get like happy endings with this series, and some of the events that happen to them are like really over the top bad, but of course that makes for a very entertaining read. As this is a middle grade book, you can't expect like a huge amount of complexity or of underlying themes or stuff like that. So it's more a read of enjoyment and refreshment for me in between more heady tomes or heavy tomes, and therefore I think it works really well. It's nothing that will knock off your socks, but it is entertaining, and therefore I can say I liked it and awarded 3 stars. And last but not least, I finished The Ace of Skulls, which is the 4th installment in Chris Wooding's Tales of the Catty J series. It's a steampunk set in a secondary fantasy world. It's about a group of sky pirates that are flying on the ship Catty J with their captain Darian Frey. Again, as it's the 4th installment, I don't want to go into too much detail because some of the events of the first 3 books lead up to the plot of this one. But the series is a very strong series for fans of TV shows like Firefly. The dynamics of the crew are very similar. There is a lot of humor in it and banter between the crew members, which I really enjoy. And this book was a fantastic ending to a great series. All the minor little plot lines come to an end and are wrapped up that were there through the first 3 books. There's a very satisfying ending, in my opinion, to the whole series and the overall plot. And after the last book was just a little bit less enjoyable for me as the very strong first books, so I rated the last one 4 stars, so which is really not a bad rating. But the first 2 books were 5-star reads for me, and this one again is a 5-star read. So it had everything I expected from a Tales of the Catty J book, and as I said, brought the series to a very great and fantastic conclusion. That's it from me today. I hope you enjoyed this new kind of format for Mondays. If you did, hit the like button. If you want to see more of me, subscribe to my channel. If you want to know what's coming up on my channel, please look inside the description box. There's a little segment there called On the Horizon. I wish you a good day and hope you get bitten by a really good book too. Bye.